Chapter 107, To Prove. Friday was a training day for reflexes. It was still in the training building for the speed of reflexes. The main speaker was naturally Professor Luo Shifeng. Students, this is the second time you are going through a lesson on reflexes. I've already taught you the training method. A person's reflexes had to be enhanced through long-term training. There were no shortcuts to that. With the accumulation of training, activating reaction-type genetic base points was a natural course of action. However, I have another question to tell you before I inject you with the nerve acceleration elixir. It's the difference between the speed of your reflexes and the speed of your body. Professor Luo Shifeng was very strict in class. He spoke non-stop the moment the lesson started. Increasing the speed of your reflexes would greatly enhance your abilities. However, when the speed of your reflexes reaches a certain level, the enhancement to your abilities would become smaller. Over here, there is an important parameter, the speed at which your body reacts. Let me give you an example. When the speed of your reflexes has increased to 10 milliseconds, theoretically, you should be able to react 100 times within a second. However, can you quickly flick your fingers 100 times a second if you reflect this reaction speed onto your fingers? No one should be able to do it a year later when your reflexes reach 10 milliseconds. If you want to do that, you have to increase the reaction speed of your body. That means increasing your control over your body. The teachers in other classes will naturally teach you that. What I want to say is that you still have to train your reflexes a year later. Based on the current data, one would benefit the most if their reflexes can reach 10 milliseconds. However, according to our research, if we continue to train and enhance our reflexes after they reach 10 milliseconds, the speed of our reflexes would benefit our bodies. The enhancement might not be that obvious, but once a person's reflexes and body reflexes reach that level, every little enhancement is extremely important. There's one more thing. The reaction speed is much more important to the mystery branch students. After a student's reaction speed in the extreme branch institute reaches a certain level, it would be limited by the speed of their body's reaction. There would not be much of an improvement. However, the mind power of a mystery branch student would not be affected in this manner. Alright, that's all for today's theory. We'll continue with today's training. As usual, we'll test for a basic value and administer the nerves acceleration elixir ourselves before we go through our training. Also, students who have any other questions can ask them individually after the training starts, Luo Shifeng said. The female students did not have that much of a reaction after being administered with the nerves acceleration elixir for the second time. Zhu Tui, who was familiar with the process, first tested his reflexes. 49 milliseconds. It had increased since he activated the second reaction speed-related genetic base point. Then, Zhu Tui administered the nerve acceleration elixir to himself. Zhu Tui did not start training immediately after he was administered with the elixir. Instead, he actively pressed on the bell to ask his question. He had just taken a sip of the red date tea in his thermos when Luo Shifeng heard the notification for the bell. He looked toward the number displayed as a warning. Training square number 699. Then, Luo Shifeng saw Zhu Tui. Luo Shifeng had a deep impression of the student who won 3 bottles of energy restoration elixirs from his previous class. After all, his standard of living during this week had clearly become much simpler. It was all because of this student called Zhu Tui. Of course, as a teacher, Luo Shifeng would not be biased towards Zhu Tui because of that. However, he was still a human. He could not avoid feeling a little uncomfortable. However, Luo Shifeng still quickly walked over when he heard Zhu Tui's question. Professor Luo, I wish to know if there are any more rewards today. Zhu Tui's question was a little abrupt. This caused Luo Shifeng to knit his brows. Zhu Tui, if you are asking meaningless questions by pressing the bell, you would forever lose the chance to ask questions in my class. After he said that, Luo Shifeng added, the reason I set up a reward in the previous lesson was to stimulate the students who had just started their training on how to react quickly. However, training your reflexes would allow you to have a higher chance of survival in future battles. If you came to speed up your reflexes because of the reward I set up, then I think that you are starting from the wrong place, Luo Shifeng criticized. I'm sorry, Professor Luo. I was just curious. Zhu Tui apologized sincerely. Of course, he was not just curious. He really wanted to know if Luo Shifeng would set another reward. He would definitely think of a way to obtain them if they were set up. His financial situation had deteriorated drastically after he purchased the 5 alloy silver pills a few days ago. Before Luo Shifeng could flare up, Zhu Tui quickly asked him another question. Professor Luo, my real problem is that we have discovered 7 genetic base points relating to the speed of a person's reflexes. Then are there any undiscovered genetic base points relating to reflexes and speed? Zhu Tui's rather serious question managed to suppress Luo Shifeng's anger. After all, Zhu Tui's performance during the previous lesson had been rather startling. In theory, yes. However, it has been 37 years since we discovered the last genetic base points relating to reflexes. There had been no new discoveries in the past 37 years. The probability of discovering new genetic base points relating to reaction speed in the future was very small. I think that the more important thing for you to do now is to activate the genetic base points that are related to your reflexes, not something like this. You are too ambitious. In Luo Shifeng's opinion, the words "too ambitious" was a heavy criticism. He hoped that he could remind the student in front of him. The Wuxia Genetic Evolution College had many geniuses. However, every year, many geniuses would be delayed by such unrealistic ideas. Professor Luo, if I tell you that I might have discovered a brand new genetic base point related to reaction speed that I have never seen before, would you be able to provide me with guidance and research assistance? Zhu Tui's words were startling. Hearing this, Luo Shifeng had the urge to turn and leave. He felt that Zhu Tui was dreaming. He was being ridiculous. He had only trained his reflexes for a few days. Yet he was already trying to discover genetic base points relating to speed. Wasn't that a fool's dream? However, with a responsible mindset, Luo Shifeng felt that he had to try and save this whimsical student in front of him. This was his responsibility as a teacher. Zhu Tui, your thoughts? Professor Luo, take a look at the reaction speed of your reflexes that I tested just now. Zhu Tui immediately handed him a reaction speed report. Luo Shifeng froze when he scanned the area. 49 milliseconds. He remembered Zhu Tui's results clearly because of the 3 bottles of level E energy restoration elixirs. On Friday, Zhu Tui's initial reaction speed was 180 milliseconds. He managed to obtain 3 bottles of level E energy restoration elixirs as a reward after class with his 112 milliseconds. Last week, Luo Shifeng thought that it was because Zhu Tui was a little luckier than the rest of the students. It might also be because of his habits of training his reflexes that he activated a genetic base point that was related to reflexes on the spot and took the reward away. However, it had only been 7 days. Zhu Tui's reaction speed increased from 112 milliseconds to 49 milliseconds. It increased his score by 63 milliseconds. The enhancement was too great. If there was such an enhancement, it must be because Zhu Tui had activated another genetic base point related to reflexes. However, what was the point? Based on his decades of experience, even though this was rare, it was not uncommon. The enhancement is not bad. You have to continue working hard. However, this has nothing to do with the discovery of new genetic base points relating to reflexes and speed. I think that you should be more practical. Luo Shifeng tried his best to save Zhu Tui, a student. It was his responsibility. Professor Luo, I know what you mean, but I still have a few questions that I need to tell you. I hope that you can hear me out. Zhu Tui interrupted Luo Shifeng. However, his attitude was very sincere. Zhu Tui spoke without waiting for Luo Shifeng to say anything. He was afraid that Luo Shifeng would turn around and leave. If that was the case, he might not be able to develop his research plan. Professor Luo, I am a specially recruited student from the School of Enlightened Mind, Professor Njiao Saxui. I have long activated my introspection ability, Zhu Tui proactively explained. Luo Shifeng raised his brows. He had heard about the specific requirements of a specially recruited student from the School of Enlightened Mind. However, what did this have to do with the School of Neural Reaction? Professor Luo, during this lesson, I am confident that I can activate another genetic base point related to reflexes to greatly enhance the speed of my reflexes. If I can activate another genetic base point related to reaction speed during this lesson, would you be able to guide me in my research on new genetic base points related to reaction speed? Zhu Tui finally revealed his true goal after circling around the topic for some time. Luo Shifeng was not confused. On the contrary, a professor who could become a member of the Wuxia Genetic Evolution College was definitely an intelligent individual. At this moment, he understood what Zhu Tui meant. What Zhu Tui roughly meant was that with his introspection ability, he might have found the scope or direction of a new reaction-type genetic base point. However, he did not know how to research that. Thus, they had used this method to gain Luo Shifeng's trust and ask him for help with their research. Luo Shifeng's heart skipped a beat when he thought of that. He could not wait for such research. This was research that could leave its mark in history. You're not joking? Luo Shifeng was giving his final confirmation. He did not want to be tricked by a student and become the laughingstock of the school. Professor Luo, I don't want to be kicked out of the class by you forever. I am serious. Everything I said is true. I suggested this idea to prove myself, Zhu Tui said. Luo Shifeng considered it for a moment, then nodded. I know how unique the enlightened mind type is. However, I have to see you prove it to me with my own eyes. I'll believe you if you do it. I'll research it with you. Luo Shifeng turned to leave after he finished speaking. Thank you, Professor Luo, for giving me this opportunity.